Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Surviving to Thriving for Highly Sensitives. And I just so glad to have you here. We're going to talk about all kinds of things, high sensitivity. And if you've been following me, you know I actually prefer the term highly sensing. So we're using that quite a lot so that we're not focused on that potential stigma that comes up from sensitivity in our culture. But I'm here every week to help you go from survive to, which includes a lot of struggle sometimes, to actually thriving. And this month we are talking all about honoring yourself. So before we get started, I'm going to have you do a little experiential exercise. So wherever you are, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and close down your eyes or stare off in the front and soften your gaze. Take a nice, deep, long breath. And I just want you to imagine something. Imagine that you walk into a restaurant, and I'm just going to paint a picture here. You walk into this restaurant, you wait in the waiting area there just for a little while, and then you get seated. And what I want you to notice now is from where you're sitting, you can hear the front door opening and closing. And as each group of people or couple or individual person comes in, you can not only hear that door, but you can hear whatever their conversations are. And then now pay attention to all of the other tables that are around your table in this restaurant. And let's say that the majority of those are full of people, and each of those has their own conversation going. So for just a minute, kind of tune in, pay attention to each of those tables, noting that everyone has a different conversation happening. And now notice that quite frequently, it's a very popular restaurant, apparently, there is a lot of phone calls. So the phone is ringing and then the hostess or somebody is answering that phone and talking with whoever is on the other end. Probably taking an order, I would imagine. And then now pay attention to, from where you're sitting, you can see the door that goes into the kitchen. And that opens and closes, and it's a little squeaky. And as it seats, you can hear the suction of, this is getting very detailed, I know, the suction of the door coming to close. And every time it opens, you hear some stuff happening from inside the kitchen. And now I want you to pay attention to some piped in music, whether that's music that resonates with you or not. Just notice that there's music coming in above everything, around you. Maybe the speakers are close, maybe they're far away, but you can hear that music. And then you pay attention to the fact that there is a server who is going around from table to table, asking how people are doing and taking orders. So maybe stopping at the table next to you, taking someone's order. And you've come in with a friend and you're sitting with each other and you're wanting to have a conversation. And so that your friend is talking and you're really trying to pay attention to that person and that conversation. Now, if you're not a highly sensing person, this might all be like, okay, whatever, got it. This sounds fun. This sounds amazing. If you are a highly sensing person, you might be feeling some anxiety at this point, as I'm just exploring. This is just virtual and just theoretical. We're just imagining here. But as you're going through this exercise, you might be feeling some anxiety. You might be feeling your breath starting to get a little shallow. And you're really paying attention to all of these things. And you can come back to where you are in the room now. We're kind of done with the exercise, but I wanted to present this and now be aware of, if you are a highly sensing person, likely you were really paying attention to every single one of these things I mentioned. And you've probably had an experience like this, I would imagine, where for us, as opposed to someone who's not highly sensing, we're aware of every single one of those things that I mentioned all at the same time. And again, if you're highly sensing, you're probably nodding your head and going, oh yeah, I've been there. So you are aware of the front door, the people coming in and the people leaving, the cash register, which I didn't even mention, if of course these days most everything is digital and that's actually fairly quiet, nicely. But the phone ringing and all of the multiple conversations at the tables and the server and those conversations and the door going into the kitchen and all of the kitchen noise and the music that's piped in, which may not even be something that really fits with you and resonates. So all of that stuff is happening at the same time. You probably have some kind of visceral reaction, even if you're just sitting here thinking about this. But if you are really in that environment, you would definitely be having some kind of response, probably viscerally, something in your body, and probably feeling very distracted, really having a hard time paying attention to your friend, wanting to engage in that conversation because you really like that deep connection, but it's a real struggle because there's all of this other stuff happening. So what I want you to be aware of, not just like this is what it's like to be highly sensing, because you know that if that's you and you're here for that reason, but be aware that this is normal for us because of the way we're wired. This is just a typical response because we process everything, we soak it all up like a sponge, and it's all on top of mind. It's all in our energy field. It's all in our awareness. And that is just the way it can be for us. So as we're talking about honoring, what's really important, and I talked to some about this last week, is that comparison. We compare ourselves with other people. Everyone else is having a really great time. I don't know why this is such a problem for me, but it's your nervous system that's important. And honoring that and recognizing, wow, you know what, this really doesn't work for me, is so empowering and so important for being able to manage in a non-highly sensing world, because there is a lot of noise and a lot of things going on when we are out in public, and sometimes even in our own households. And all of that has an effect on our nervous system and our ability to focus. So if you're in a work environment when you have similar things going on, your ability to stay on task and to focus and to really put your skills to use in the best way is going to be really challenged, because all of that stuff is on your radar. And even if you don't want it to be, it likely is. So just honoring that. And we have a tendency to kind of see the worst in ourselves because we compare with others, or because we think, well, I should be able to manage this without being so sensitive or without these things affecting me. And I just want you to reconsider that and say, okay, I am wired this way. This is my reaction. So what do I do with that? I honor it and say, yep, that's me. It's different than some others. And there's probably, it's if 1 in every 5 people at least that is highly sensing, there's some people at the restaurant that are likely to be highly sensing. Now, maybe not the percentage that we would normally see, because they've chosen not to come to this environment, right? They're having a dinner somewhere that's super quiet, or somebody's house, something like that. But there's likely to be at least one other person in the room that is also highly sensing, but might not be acknowledging and honoring and just kind of dealing with it, going along with the motions so that they don't seem weird or offend anybody. Those kinds of things are, pretty common. So just be aware and see if you can honor yourself for when you have these reactions that others don't seem to understand. They say, oh, it's no big deal. Just ignore it. Just don't worry about it. And you're having a hard time with that. Honor that and stop making those comparisons. And the next thing I want to talk about is this idea of, again, when we're honoring where we are at compared to someone else, we have these high expectations for ourselves and others quite often, to be honest. But when we have these high expectations, we second guess ourselves. We, say, oh, I should be able to manage this like everyone else in this room. And so we get on ourselves. We feel bad or guilty when it's just our experience. So sometimes I like to mention to people that when you are, and this works for making decisions as well, but when you're having an experience and you're feeling bad about it, or you're thinking, gosh, there must be something that I'm doing wrong, or I need to fix this or change this or whatever. If you think about, if you were with your best friend, highly sensing or not, and you said, so you know what I'm like, and I'm in this situation and I'm really struggling with it. what do you think? Or what would you do? Or, what do you have to say to me about this? And think about what that person would say. And most likely it's going to be very supportive to you. It's going to have some understanding and support, even if they don't understand, they don't get the high sensitivity piece. They understand that that's how, who you are. If you've been successful sharing that with them and, they're one of your supporters, what would that person say to you compared to what you're telling yourself? So likely, if this is somebody that's supportive, the person's going to say, well, I don't experiencing that. I'm in trouble with my words today, the way that you do. But I get that this is challenging for you. So why don't we just go somewhere quieter? Or maybe they are highly sensing and they say, oh, I totally get it. I'm feeling that too. Let's do something else. Right. So they would probably have something supportive to say to you, whereas you're sitting back going, this isn't okay. I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't have this feeling. I shouldn't react like this. But ask yourself, if you were with someone, because let's say you're not, what would my best friend tell me right now? And then the other flip side to that is, if you were to have a highly sensing person that is going through these similar situations, and this works across the board, whether you're highly sensing or not, this is a good practice, but especially for us, this is really helpful when we are in these places of second guessing to say, okay, so if my friend was going through this, what would I tell her or him? Would you say, oh yeah, you need to suck it up and just deal with it. Just make it okay. Don't worry about it. Or would you likely say, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Let's go somewhere that is, more suitable to you. Or, oh, I can really understand that, because there really is a lot going on that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, but I can see why that would be, a challenge for you. Even if that person is, not highly sensing, that would work. But certainly if they are, and you are aware of what that's like, and it's not just for situations like being out in public, it's anything that you second guess yourself on, that you say, oh, maybe I should have done that differently. Maybe that's, not okay. I'm going to be seen as, weird or an outcast. And so you modify your behavior, or you feel guilty. So if you use that idea and say, okay, what would my best friend say to me right now? And then honor that. Take that and say, oh, okay, can I say that to myself then? Can I say, you know what, this is the way I'm wired. So this experience or this response is normal for me and for anyone that's experiencing high sensitivity. Or you can, again, say, okay, what would I tell my best friend in this situation? It would probably be much more supportive than what you're giving yourself right now. So that's just an idea to really be aware of, and think about that. Maybe journal about it and say, oh yeah, how often do I get on myself for, thinking I needed to be different, or that I just need to suck it up, or get a thicker skin, all of those kinds of things that we hear from other people, but we also have come to believe sometimes, for ourselves, and see if we can let go of some of that by using one of many, but this one tool of saying, okay, what would I say to someone else, or what would they say to me? And seeing if I can honor that and make a difference in how I approach these things, and give myself permission to have these reactions, to have this nervous system. This is the way I'm wired. And for highly sensing folks, we do tend to have more, we have a more, greater tendency toward perfectionism. We want everything to be just right. We want to do really, really well. We want everyone to be happy with us, no one to be disappointed. We don't want to upset anybody. And we want to do things just right and perfectly. And, perfection is one of those unattainable things, because we can always say, yeah, but I could have done it better. I should have done it better. We can say, okay, if I'm perfect, I do this, this, and this. And then you do that, you can still say, yeah, but. So, there's you can't really win when you're dealing with this idea of needing to be perfect, because really perfection is subjective. So if we have an idea of what we need to be perfect, that might not be what somebody else thinks at all. And then if you do that friend idea, if you say, oh, I'm thinking I need to be this way, And that person might say, why? Why do you need to have all of those things in place? You know, you're fine the way it is, or the way you are. But we really hold ourselves to those tight expectations and needing to be perfect. So can we treat each other the same way as we would treat others, treat ourselves the way we would treat others, in terms of being, you know, supportive and recognizing what it is we're going through, and try to let go of that need to be perfect and always comparing ourselves, you know, to other people. Sometimes we tend to search for compliments. You know, we want to know that other people think everything is good, and there's nothing wrong with compliments, and they feel good, and that's great. But what's most important is that we honor where we're at ourselves, how we are doing, and that we say, this is the way I am. I don't need to be like everyone else or anyone else. And where I'm at each day might be different. And so I can honor that and not have to be totally on 100% all the time, liking everything that everyone else likes, but being able to say, you know what, that doesn't resonate for me. And that's okay. Being able to honor that difference, that works for some people, that doesn't work for me. This works for me, that might not work for other people. And that's all okay. So if we think about the fact of, you know, how much do I expect other people to manage in certain situations? So how much do I expect myself? And is that reasonable? Or can I let go of some of that and just be okay with who I am? So because I want to address this idea that sometimes people think they need to be less sensitive, or they needed these tools to just be less sensitive, rather than saying, I am sensitive, highly sensing, and so this is what I'm going to do with it. So if we can let go of this idea that I can be who I want to be, or be okay in spite of my sensitivity, and switch that, reframe that to, I am okay, I am the way I want to be as a highly sensing person, with my high sensitivity, with my ability to sense things so deeply, and not see that as something that we have to like shove off into the corner and downplay, or even, you know, sometimes that's the goal, is like to get rid of that. And that's not realistic. For one thing, it's not likely to happen that we're going to just suddenly not be sensitive, but we can develop those tools and be less reactive to things. But if we can see that we are amazing as we are, you are amazing as you are, as a highly sensing person. So just let that sit in, see if you can get to where that becomes an accepted thing for you. I am okay as I am, as a highly sensing person. Nothing needs to change. And of course, there are those tools that help us to manage in a non-highly sensing world. And to, it's not that we don't have to work on things like relationships and being our best and constantly growing and improving. Absolutely, we need to do those things, but we don't need to try to do it by getting rid of the sensitivity. So hopefully that resonates with everyone. And so today I wanted to just do a little brief tapping session on being perfectly imperfect. And this, of course, is good for everyone, not just highly sensing people, but especially for us. So if you've not done tapping with me before, I'm just going to lead you through some things to say. I'm going to pause and let you say them back, hopefully out loud if you don't have anyone around you, or just to yourself if necessary. It's always a little more powerful, I think, if you can voice these things out loud. But I'll just be going through tapping on some certain points. You just follow along and do the exact same thing. And when I pause, you say what I've said. And it's just going to be really brief, but just an idea of how to focus on this idea of letting go of perfection and needing to be different, needing to be more like others. So wherever you are, just kind of settle in, get, you know, nice and comfortable. Take a couple deep breaths. These off. And we're going to focus on this perfection. So on the side of the hand, where we do the setup statement, 3 times, we're going to say this. And when I pause, then you say what I've said. And as anytime you're doing tapping, if there's a different word that resonates more for you, just throw that in. That's totally fine. You don't have to say exactly what I say, but as long as it resonates, just use my words unless something else pops up. Even though I tend toward being very perfectionistic, I love and accept myself deeply and completely. Even though I tend to want to be perfect all the time, I love myself anyway, and I'm open for a new way of thinking. Even though I compare myself a lot with others, and I often fall short because I think I need to be perfect, I love and accept myself deeply, and I'm ready for this to shift. And then just follow along. This perfectionism, I've had it as long as I can remember, pretty much. When I do things really well and feel pretty perfect, it feels amazing. But I realize it's really not sustainable. It's really hard and a lot of pressure to be perfect. But I really don't like letting others down. I don't like disappointing anyone or having them think badly of me. So I really want to be perfect. I compare myself to others and think what I need to look like or be like. And I realize that creates a lot of stress in my life. It's not serving me to try to be perfect. It's not serving me to compare myself with others all the time. I end up feeling really anxious and guilty. My body gets all tense and I get all worried. I end up feeling really anxious. I'm so tired of feeling not okay, not enough. This perfectionism is not helping me. I'm not really sure how to act otherwise, though. How do I let go of this need to be perfect and just like everyone else? It's a real energy drain for me when I'm always trying to be perfect. It's great when I do things well, but if I don't, then I just feel awful. What if I could let go of this need to be perfect? What if I could let go of this need to be like others? Really, I don't want to be exactly like others. I know there's amazing things about me if I just let them be. What if I could let go of needing to be different and honor who I am? What if I can just be relaxed and be me? What if being my true authentic self is totally okay? And others are probably not judging me as much as I think they are. But even if and when people do judge me, I'm not responsible for their thoughts and their feelings or their expectations. I choose to let go of this need to be perfect. I choose to honor who I am with my sensitivities. I acknowledge that I might respond differently than others. And that's totally okay. I give myself permission to love myself as I am. I acknowledge that I don't need to be less sensitive. I don't need to be different, a different person. I give myself permission to just be me. I let go of anything that's in my way of feeling comfortable in my own skin. I let go of old ideas, old patterns that tell me I need to be a certain way. I give myself permission to just be. I choose to release all blocks, anything in my way of honoring and loving myself as a sensitive person. I release all of my expectations. I don't have to be a different person. I honor myself as I am. I acknowledge that I'm an amazing person. I am highly sensing and amazing. I honor who I am and what I am, even with the differences from other people. My differences are awesome. I honor who I am. Go ahead and take a nice deep breath. And I know that was really, really short. Hopefully you felt a little bit of shift and feeling a little bit better. Doing a longer session of that, or working with someone to do the tapping, to really get into the fine, nitty gritty of where these ideas come from, and really letting go of these old patterns that we've carried is really, really powerful. But I hope that gives you a little something to work with. And of course, you can repeat that over and over on the recording. And hopefully that just helps you get into that practice of honoring who you are for what you are, no matter what the differences are, not needing to be anything different, because you are amazing as you are, as a highly sensing person. And I'm so glad to have you here every week, as always, to just talk about all of these things that make being highly sensitive just really amazing, trying to get past all that struggle by building all these tools. So thank you for being here. Feel free to reach out anytime. I will be back next week to continue this idea of honoring yourself, some new ways of looking at how you can honor yourself as a highly sensing person. Thanks again, and I will see you next week.